Welcome back, Visions fans. Ready Player Will here with a new topic that's a little bit forward-looking, not something I typically do, but with Ranan's release today, I wanted to dive just a smidge deeper in what to expect in the short-term future, something that a lot of people are anticipating and talk out loud, not only generally, but apply just a little bit in the way of some damage calculations as well. I know you all love that. So the big topic of discussion is Ranan versus Celes, who is a new water tank coming out in Final Fantasy VI in just a couple weeks here. So today's presentation, what I'll do is I'm going to look at what the impending meta is per what we saw on the JP side of things, take a closer look at Celes in particular, with a little bit of Astoria and Chaos Odin and how they factor into things, and then just looking at Ranan in particular and Ibarra in the context and the future of this water meta. So on the topic of that impending meta, Celes in 2 weeks will be part of the Final Fantasy VI collaboration that's coming. Chaos Odin is also slated to come out at that time, who is a dual element vision card. Get to that soon. And then Astoria is the Crystal Warrior for water that comes out a month after that. So we do have time till this fully ramps up. It's not happening overnight by any means, but it's something that's on the horizon, and time certainly flies. So a couple things to really understand first about Celes as a water tank before we get into anything. Some important stats. She's got 13 spirit innately and some, quite frankly, amazing resistances right off the bat. So 10% to slash and pierce, 15% to missile and magic, with strike being the only negative weakness there, nothing too scary. So she starts off with a really great set of resistances overall. And when we look at her passives, there's two in particular that I think you'll probably see used most often. The first one is this top one here, which increases her defense and spirit by 12, and it increases her chance of being targeted by 5 to start the battle. And most people opt for this on their tanks so that they can dictate the enemy movement. I have no doubts this will be the case here as well. We see it on King Mont, for example, and Dwayne all the time. And I think the second one you'd be likely to use is the third one down here that increases the move of 1 and the HP of 12%. Sure, you might opt for the magic resistance or the one that it has both magic and fire, but I think the move is probably more valuable just to make sure she gets out in front of the team, and the HP obviously for survivability. Keeping that in mind, there's a couple abilities that are brand new to her that are, quite frankly, pretty staggering in how good they are. The first one is her buff that essentially attracts more hate, similar to how Joom does it, where Joom starts the battle with 5 hate, part of her mastery, and then her Vacuum Veil buff gives her another additional set of hate. So this one will raise that hate by 12, giving her a total of 17, and then it increases her single target resistance by 25%, which is a sizable amount of unit resistance, quite frankly. That's a lot. And then there's a second ability, so she really does require 2 turns to get fully ramped up. That's fine. Charlotte is kind of the same kind of tank. But the second ability here is the one that really, really stands out. It's called, I call it Runic Shield. I don't know what it's translated as, but it lets her absorb magic 2 times. Now, there's some specifics we'll get into here, but go with me for a moment. You can absorb and nullify the damage of 2 incoming magic attacks, but you don't absorb the damage, you absorb the AP, which is really an interesting mechanic. We'll get to more of that soon. And it also grants her Protect and Shell, so not only will she effectively be immune to all magic, reflectable magic type damage for 2 attacks, but she also gives herself Reflect and Shell, and this acts as a source of AP generation for her. Couple other abilities to keep in mind. We get into the limit break, which is all attack resistance up of 15%. So all of these resists, that 10% slash resistant, will be 25 for 3 turns. So, after she absorbs 2 magic attacks, and then she presumably uses her limit break after, she will become even tankier in the mid fight, which is, quite frankly, very dangerous. And then the third thing, if insult to injury, she has 2 fantastic counter abilities. The top one here is specifically, again, and both of them for magic damage, but the first one is specifically for damage mitigation, where you have a 20% chance to reduce the damage taken by 45%. And the second one is a straight up magic reflex. She can straight up just evade and reflex an incoming magic attack. So very, very, very strong magic tank overall. And when we get into the Runic Shield mechanic, now when you absorb an ability, you will not take the debuff. So what I mean by that is, if Ranan used his basic Thunderstorm ability that reduces magic resistance by 25%, that will not take effect. She will instead absorb the AP that it costs for him to cast, and that's it. She'll take no damage, she'll take no debuff. End of it. So that's important to remember. It will not absorb any limit breaks, only magic attacks. So Renan's limit break is fair play. She will take damage from that, as same with Black Rosalie and a whole bunch of others. And it's confined to reflectable magic. And so examples of non-reflectable are Elena's main job and Eldyra's Blade Soul sub-job. Those are magic scaling attacks, but they're not reflectable, so they will still hit her. She will not absorb anything. And then it will absorb 80% of the AP of the ability rounded down, and we'll see the math that in just a hot second here. So I actually have a video of this in action, courtesy of Cabbage. This is a video we did from the arena. And just very quickly, you can see Glaciella is going to use her level 120 ability here. And what's going to happen is you're going to see it get cast, and no damage is taken by Celes, but instead she gains 30 AP. And so the ability that we're seeing down here below, the one that Glaciella used, is a 38 AP ability. If you multiply times 0.8, which is what the absorption rate is, 30.4 round down, that's 30 AP that Celes will get from this. Now, if you continue on in the video, you'll see here that when Black Rose Elena goes to attack immediately after, uses the limit break, this damage does still go through. So limit breaks don't have any bearing on that, which is a nice trade-off per se, because limit breaks are pretty powerful. They'd almost be broken if you could just nullify limit breaks. And some rough damage calculations here. So this is where things got interesting, and sorry for the animation formatting here. So I built a team, and not the meta team you might expect. I didn't put Astoria in here because it frankly doesn't matter. This is a reflection of Celes. And I built her to those two passives that we were talking about in particular. I gave her a magic-oriented Esper that has Spirit on it. Geared her for some extra Spirit with a Titus necklace. I gave her the Mage's Robe here for the extra defense and slash resistance, figuring kind of, you can't ever be a one-trick pony. And then added some vision cards that I thought would be appropriate on the other units. And when you do all of that, the stats that you get from her, and the important ones to keep in mind, she gets upward of 9,300 HP. And I also did do the statues and the mastery as well. I did level 7 statues and 28 mastery. So you get 9,300 HP, 61 Spirit, 18 slash resistance, and 28 magic resistance. So these are the numbers that you'll really want to keep in mind. And insult to injury, she also has 10 AoE resistance as part of her mastery that she'll retain at all times, so adding to her tankiness. And then I built a lightning team here with Ranan and Dyra and Charlotte, and did the passives that we see most often. I gave them both Espers that are accuracy oriented, because that's generally what they'll want and need in most instances. With the vision cards, I did Blossoms of the Dark for now instead of Europa. Roughly the same overall impact on the damage calculations. And I actually gave Ranan the Cypress Pile so that he can have some magic resistance penetration here as well. And doing a handful of different situations just to get a really rough idea of what kind of numbers we're looking at, because Celes is such a good magic tank. I actually had questions on whether water could even be countered by lightning, specifically the magic, obviously. And so if you keep in mind that her HP is about 9360, some rough damage calculations here. So Ibarra, if she were to limit break straight up on turn 1, no buffs, she would do 4,500 damage roughly, but because Celes has Shell as part of that second turn, it's really about 3,400 damage, which isn't that high. 3,400, lightning versus water, you'd expect that to be a little bit higher. But that's again assuming no buffs or anything. If Ibarra used Fall of the Night buff turn 1, which gives her magic resistance penetration, man killer, magic attack up, you do see a spike in that damage number. So instead, the net effect of the shell effect is 4,600 damage. And that's not bad. You're talking about roughly 50% of her health pool. And also recall that because she takes the entire ability, she will have a 38% lightning imperil after that, because Ibarra's limit break is a lightning peril as well. So if we then consider someone like Ranan coming in here with his limit break turn 1, no buffs or anything, it does a fair amount less damage, so about 3,100, and he doesn't really have any big offensive buffs like Ibarra does, so that's kind of what you should expect. So if you figure the two of them coming out of the gate, you're looking at 7,600 damage, so Celes is still going strong for certain. If you instead, though, consider him using his limit break after Ibarra with the lightning apparel, it does jump up to about 4,400. So roughly her whole health pool, she's still alive, but definitely hurting. And this is, again, not including any critical damage either. If they had procced some critical hits here, they actually might, in fact, pass that HP threshold and end up killing her. I then also wanted to look at Ibarra. Slate Wiper, if she did not use her buff, it's about 3,000 damage. If she was Slate Wiper with the buff, so she gets a 25 man killer, about 3,400. If Ibarra used Slate Wiper with no buff, but in the apparel, the rough TLDR of this is that you're in the low 4s. Now, the reason why I didn't go too nuts here with Ranan's damage calculations is that because he is 100% magic oriented, she will absorb his first 2 magic attacks, provided that Ibarra doesn't use a magic attack as well, and they both kind of chip away at it. Now, I have no doubt once you take down the Runic shield that Ranan is going to continue to do anywhere from 4k damage around what we're seeing here. So overall, it's competitive. It's not one way or the other. It's certainly beatable, but you have to really be methodical in how you do so. And there's one extra caveat on here that I thought was really interesting that someone brought up to me in my guild when I was kind of throwing this around. Aerith can give you magic shields. So technically, there is a world where if you had Aerith, turn 1 buff, use the protective ward with Celes, you would give Celes 3 magic shields, which is a 35% magic damage reduction. And so all of these values drastically decrease when that happens. So there's actually a very difficult situation where you might encounter this. And although Ranan does have a barrier break, it will not actually take effect, to my knowledge, when she can absorb the attack, because any kind of extra abilities in the attack don't take effect. I'd have to actually double check that mechanic, because I don't think barrier breaks are included, but they could be. But either way, things drastically change when you throw a magic shield on her. And for anyone that's curious on how the numbers here exactly work, you effectively take the damage that the calculator would give you. Shell, you would reduce the damage by 25%, and then the shield is a 35% shield, so you reduce it by 35%. So you do this number times 1 minus 25 here, and then 1 minus 35 here. Anyways, just talking out loud. Now for Astoria, who is a physical damage dealer, and quite frankly is a great unit, he has some great stats that pair really well with her. He's got an innate 8 spirit, and then positive resist to those 4 other types, and minus 10 to strike. So really similar to what Celes brings, so they obviously have some pretty good starting survivability right off the bat. And his abilities, although not as game-breaking as hers in the context of this meta, are pretty damn good. So he's slash and missile type attacker. He can dispel re-raise. He's got a defense break, 100% hit chance. He's got an AoE slash resistance up 25% that he can give to himself and Celes, which will also allow him to absorb 30% damage that he deals for 3 turns. And then he's got a physical barrier break. And his limit break is a 38% slash imperil, which will enable a follow-up attack on all the rest of his attacks, kind of like Noctis does, where he'll attack and then have like another one. So that will help kill people that have courage. So he can effectively counter both re-raise and courage. Now, you can see why he's such a great unit. When you put him next to someone like Celes, the two of them together are pretty darn good. Which brings us to our third aspect of the potential impending meta, is this Chaos Odin vision card in Esper. And if you look at the vision card, it's unique and new. Number one, it's got great stats, extra AP, spirit, agility, attack, HP. Obviously attack oriented, not magic oriented, but that's okay. For the unit, here's the kicker. It can be used on both ice and water units. So for the first time, you'll likely get some pretty decent synergy with water units and then a random ice unit. And the character you're equipping this on will get either 8 human killer or 5% HP, whether they're ice or water. And then for the party, it effectively gives the same buffs whether you're ice or water. It'll give you 50% attack, 13% HP, and 10 single target resistance, which again obviously skewed for the physical attackers, but again extra HP for Celes and Astoria. And then technically that extra 10 unit resistance will bump Celes's innate unit resistance up to 35%, because if you recall, her buff where she adds that extra hate is 25 unit resistance. She'll now have 35, so that's a lot of unit resistance, and that will obviously also impact things like Ibarra's limit break, which is single target, so it will do less damage if you're using the Chaos Odin vision card. And if you're talking about the Esper, it quite frankly is an amazing Esper, stats that mirror its regular Odin in terms of agility and attack. But the board, one thing you'll notice, welcome to 2022 everybody, there is another 22% evasion on here, so you will likely get an evade unit or two alongside these water units. And if you recall, the lightning cast is not all of that accurate. Now, it's probably not going to be optimized for evasion, because if you're doing mixed elements, the luck cards might be hard to overlap, but you get the point. It's going to add a wrinkle into things for sure. So we talk about the conclusion of Ranan in the context of all of this. Ibarra's presence, quite frankly, should affect his strength. I can see why in JP he fell by the wayside, and why water became so prevalent, because there really wasn't anything to potentially like hard counter them. But Ibarra's presence alone, gives the threat of slash, so that the enemy Celes will have to kind of balance her stats. Ibarra's vision card is obviously great for the AoE resistance, the extra dexterity. You'd be surprised how influential that is in the battle. Her lightning apparel from both her and Charlotte allow for extra damage to be done overall, where more access to lightning apparels obviously will chunk down the enemy HP quicker. And her presence will also help melt the runic shields, so that it's not just Ranan doing magic attacks by himself, that's basically doing nothing. You can effectively kill it twice as fast when you have Ibarra in there as well, which is a good thing. His bulkiness, in my opinion, is also meant to outlast Celes's Runic shield. So I was talking about how one of his passives is 15 defense, 15 spirit, and I kind of like that one, even though it's a slight offensive, nerf, if you will, because if you have to cast 2+ attacks in order to finally start doing some damage, it means you need to live for a while. And so that's why he's got the barrier, he's got the extra bulkiness on the passives. That's why I encourage using that one. So I think that at least works, and I think it fits. He does not do a massive amount of damage despite the element advantage, so keep that in mind. He does a respectable amount of damage, but not the degree that which you might normally expect in a strong element versus a weak element. And when countering the meta, he's probably more likely to be dropped than Ibarra, that if you were to sub in Cloud or Fred or 9S, I would imagine you would keep Charlotte. You kind of need a tank. And then if you're deciding who you drop after that, Ibarra seems to have more influence, or at least more countering ability to Celes than Ranan does, because he is 100% magic type attacks, and at least Ibarra has the extra slash in there that obviously does synergize pretty well with Cloud. Begs the question, well, if he's not going to counter water, then I probably shouldn't pull for him, and that's quite frankly not exactly true. He's still competitive against the water, but you have to also consider the other elements here where I think he has frankly some great upside. Wind in particular, where Joom does have Protect and Shell, he can dispel that. Now unfortunately he cannot exactly dispel Celeste's Protect and Shell because his magic ability will simply get absorbed, and so that nullifying effect should not take effect. So it won't work as well, but it will work on Joom, which certainly does help. For Light, he can dispel Courage still, and he will absolutely annihilate Engelbert alongside Ibarra, so they will quickly be able to fight them off. And then Dark, it quite frankly will be competitive as well, because he does have that bulkiness with the barrier and the innate stats, and Dark overall is still extremely strong, but not nearly to the degree they were at one point, where I think Lightning is a lot more competitive in that regard. So overall, it's still a bright future, but it's going to be way more competitive than I think you're used to when you talk about a strong element versus a weak element. So that's things in a nutshell. I really just wanted to take a preliminary first look at this. We obviously could have things coming to global that could skew or change things depending on what they do for Europa with a global exclusive buff. What they do for maybe the next global festival unit could throw any kind of meta on its head. Who knows what happens? But for now, that's kind of where things sit. I at least wanted to talk about it. So thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see y'all soon.